Thank you for the introduction. I'm delighted to have been invited to speak at tonight's Diversity Matters series event, which will focus on gender equality. My name is Nathalie and I'm an in-house trainee solicitor in financial services. And the university, like many other organisations during this challenging time, has found new ways of connecting and providing us with content so that we can continue to take part in discussions and network with legal professionals. Over the course of last year, and as we continue into 2021, we are experiencing an unprecedented amount of uncertainty, loss, whether that is loss of opportunity, jobs or loved ones, and changes to our daily lives that affect the decisions that we make about our future. But times like this test our resilience, and by attending today's event shows us that we can continue to make progress in diversity and inclusion when we stay connected. I hope the long-term effects of the pandemic do not present further barriers to women in the law. So this week we marked the celebration of International Women's Day. So in today's event, I want to talk to you about my experience as a woman in the law, the progress that has been made so far in improving gender equality, the barriers that I think women face in the profession, and how gender equality can remain a top priority. So by way of background, as a woman in the law, I am the daughter of a first-generation immigrant. I was state school educated, the first person in my family to attend university, and I have taken a slightly different route to qualification by training with an in-house legal department. I graduated just after the financial crash, and training contracts have become fiercely competitive. This is one of the reasons why I chose to train in-house. It was drilled into me from an early age that education is important, particularly if you're a woman. Having a university degree gives you your independence, it helps you to develop an open mind, it gives you more opportunities, and it gives you control over your future. And with that in mind, I chose a law degree because of the transitional skills that you develop that can be used in many careers and not just the law. When I started off in the law, I felt that I was at a disadvantage, not only because I'm a woman, but because of my background. And at the time, I wanted to hear from someone with a similar background who had gone through a similarly competitive process. But I soon realised that I was just as capable and had just as much to offer as any of my colleagues or fellow students. People often ask me why I think gender equality is important, and this really stems from caring about shaping the future of the legal profession, so that women are able to progress in their careers, so that we have a diverse, talented lawyers who represent society, so that we're able to deliver better outcomes for our clients, for ourselves, and then in the judiciary. But things have changed over time, and now that you know a little bit about me, let's look at some of the progress that has been made so far in ensuring gender equality. We'll then move on to how it can remain a top priority. So here are some facts and figures that I thought you might find interesting. So it's been over 100 years since women could enter the legal profession and qualify as a solicitor or barrister. Women are able to vote in elections in the UK, that's been since 1918. In comparison with other countries, it wasn't until 1944 that women in France could vote. Canada was 1960, Switzerland 1971, and most recently Saudi Arabia in 2015. In the 1950s, women had to give up their jobs if they were married. But it wasn't until the 1970s, after the UK joined the EEC, that legislation was passed to give equal pay rights and prohibit discrimination on the grounds of sex or marital status. So looking now at the number of women in the law, and I'm referring to the figures that have been published by the SRA. Women make up 49% private practice, 33% partners, and 60% are in-house. And these figures are only up by 1 to 3% since 2017. We can see that there is a higher proportion of women in in-house legal. It looks like we've had gradually more acceptance from both men and women for gender equality, which may explain why the numbers of women in the law is on the increase. So how can we ensure that gender equality remains a top priority? Despite how far we've come, the legal profession remains very traditional. but continuing to challenge these traditions and encourage changes in the profession will help in some way to break down these barriers. The number of women lawyers making it to partner or senior roles could still be higher, and I think this is down to the number of women that face discrimination, something which I also experienced. Some practice areas are also less likely to employ women, perhaps where they deal with a particular client, or if it's a male-dominated environment, then this could be off-putting for some women. And some choose to take up other legal roles, such as the government legal service, or in-house legal like myself, for various reasons. So we need to break down the assumptions about what is a highly regarded legal career, so that those that took a slightly different approach can still progress into the senior roles or make it as partner if they want to. There are some ways, though, in which these barriers are being tackled, so let's take a look at them now. Firstly, the way that trainees can qualify as a solicitor is changing. The SQE, which is a super exam, the trainee completes after completing qualifying work experience or a period of recognised training, has helped some students reduce their costs and allows for trainees not to be just confined to a traditional city training contract, but experience can be undertaken in a wide range of organisations. Some aspiring solicitors that have been working for a number of years as a paralegal will welcome these changes so that their experience can be taken into account. Secondly, the problems with discrimination and sexual harassment were highlighted by the Me Too movement in 2018. This paved the way for companies to assess how they hire board members, for legislation to be introduced for mandatory gender pay gap reporting, a code of practice that was published by the House of Commons Women's Select Committee on sexual harassment in the workplace. This introduced a duty on employers to prevent instances of sexual harassment in the workplace. And then we have further guidance on the use of non-disclosure agreements in grievance procedures and at settlement. Even as we move towards a more permanent digital workforce as a result of the pandemic, it doesn't mean that discrimination or harassment has been eliminated. The boundaries of work and personal life are removed, and as the dress code becomes more casual, this has a knock-on effect on our behaviours with our colleagues. Organisations have to ensure that victims don't fall through the cracks, and that means that the way that staff or students are monitored in an online environment could change. Thirdly, the lack of recognition of family commitments. Many women find it difficult to balance their family commitments with their work, and potentially face unfair treatment from their employers. However, the rise in flexible working as a result of the pandemic has paved the way for changes in attitudes, as there's no longer a need to work set hours in a particular location. This has enabled women to work their family life around their job so that their life entitling commitments like having children are not a barrier to entering the profession or staying in it. So looking at the progress and the future changes that we can expect, we know that if women want to continue to have a place at the table that has been dominated by men for a long time, then we need to embrace that and we need to ensure that they feel empowered to do so. You also have to remember that if you have been hired for a particular job, that means that you're capable of doing that job, and that because the person that hired you knows that you can add value to that organisation. As someone who experienced barriers to the profession, my advice to any aspiring solicitors is to take opportunities that come your way, to use that as a learning experience. Remember that it will shape you into the lawyer that you'll become, and use it to make an impact so that we can continue to make progress to gender equality and diversity and inclusion in the workplace for the long term. We have come a long way on the path to gender equality, and the hope is that this progress will continue. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that you found this talk useful.